All right, Joe Joseph here for the dailysheeple.com and my very special guest today of the American Intelligence Report.com over at Truth Frequency Radio. You can also listen to him Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's Kristan T. Harris, and today we're here to talk about something special, something very special as, of course, the Easter holidays coming up. And a lot of people don't know, Kristan, about what Easter represents, what it's all about, and what a lot of these other holidays they celebrate, the power behind it.
Yeah, a lot of people out there have no idea what the traditions mean that they partake in and where they come from. In fact, I dare say that I could take it a step further, and most Christians don't even understand the faith that they believe in, and they rely on somebody else's interpretation without taking a look at themselves. And that's kind of what we're going to do here today. And one of the things I wanted to bring to you on this broadcast and maybe help expand your listeners' mind and help them educate and understand what the magic is behind words. Because we use words every day. Let's take, for example, the term hours. There's not too many people out there that understand the term hours is the Egyptian god Horus's name rearranged, and even go by a 12-hour cycle, so they could say it's Horus and his 12 followers. Do you see the word magic behind something simple as the term that we use every day to describe time or discuss time?
Oh, yeah. No, and you see it pervasive. Santa.
Sure.
What does that turn into there? You take a look at that. That's a variation of a very bad name, of course. Satan.
Well, Satan is normally misinterpreted as well. Most people believe Satan means a red-headed devil with pitchfork ears, and he's got the spike tail, amongst many other things. But it really means adversary. And throughout the Bible, Satan was many different people or adversaries. It's much like saying enemy. So who is the enemy? Adversary. Could be anyone. I could be Satan if somebody sees me as an advocate with the other mindset. So the term Satan is very specific in what it means. It's just a general term.
It's funny you say that. I want to throw this in too, because you brought that up. Antichrist is also very misinterpreted, because as in like a person. This one Antichrist is going to come and he's going to take away. No, this Antichrist is anything that's not Christ-like or Antichrist. There's a ton of Antichrist out there, So
I agree.
It's funny you say that, because there's so many terms that get misinterpreted. But one thing that, or many things that get misinterpreted, are the holidays. And people think that these holidays are these family days. Yay, everybody gets together. They eat ham on holidays. They do family things. They dye Easter eggs. It's all just so much fun and family excitement. And Kristan, really, what could be so bad about stuff like that?
Well, the big part is that we are partaking in traditions that we're being misled about. It isn't that we are being told the truth about the origins of these traditions and how they got associated, let's say, with Christianity, when in all reality, painting eggs and or, let's say, eating ham or eating chocolate bunnies have nothing at all really to do with Christianity. And or I dare say that isn't when Christ would have died at all.
I so much love chocolate bunnies. That's the and by the way, I still partake of chocolate bunnies, even though I don't partake of Easter anymore. I just can't help myself. I must have a chocolate bunny.
For some reason, the shape of a bunny gets you interested. That's because it's a fertility symbol.
And, is that right?
Yeah. So maybe that's why you just want to go and eat that bunny.
Must have the bunny.
Yes, must have the bunny. But it's funny you mentioned that. There's a very important time of year that we're celebrating, or we are seeing right now, and that would be, according to right now, we're looking at, what is it? The Passover, right?
Right.
What does that expression mean, to be passed over, or to be passed on, or to pass away? See, this is kind of also an ancient Babylonian tradition. According to Babylonian legend, when Tammuz was slain by a wild boar, by the way, that's where we get the ham and Easter that you're eating. Yum.
Ain't nothing like a pound of pig, man. That's what I like so much. I like that pound of pig.
Well, I want to know what kind of boar this was, because his father is always seen slaying lions. He's always got a lion by the throat.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right?
Tammuz was a mighty hunter. That's what he was.
What a disappointment. The pig got you.
And of all things, the damn pig.
But anyways, the idea here is Nimrod was worshipped as the first sun god. Also, this is where we get the imagery of the crown. He was the first king to wear a crown. Also, when you talk about Antichrist, he was the first person on record that we know of that was mummified, the phallic of Osiris, the phallus of Osiris. The stories are synonymous. Nimrod was defeated. His body was cut into 14 parts, and his phallic was reanimated by Semiramis, and she brought forth an immaculate conception. And in the time her child Tammuz grew, she reigned Babylon. Of course, the Hanging Gardens, the mystery Babylon religion is also credited in her name, and that is sun worship. See, that's where we get the term Sunday. That is the day you worship the Son of God.
Yes.
And what I find is much of our terminology and the magic and the words all stem from some kind of pagan occultic version of sun worship or Druidism. And even right now when people, let's say, celebrate Lent, it was
the 40 days of weeping.
Yeah, 40 days weeping. That's when Tammuz died. And guess what happened when
And they still, let me tell you something, Kristan. They cried for him even though he was killed by the pig. Just saying, it wasn't the mighty lion. It was, because today, what would happen today? Okay, so here's Tammuz, the mighty hunter. He goes out there and he gets slain by a boar. What happens to like our mighty warriors today when they get beat by the chumps?
Well, it depends what kind of boar. Are we talking Rocksteady and Bebop from Ninja Turtles type boar? I mean, come on. No. We're talking about a wild pig, and they charge fast, and I'm sure they're not small, and if it catches you off guard, what kind of mighty hunter was he, I guess, when we get down to it. But the important part is the symbolism, because the 40 days of weeping for Tammuz are important because when the weeping stopped, a giant evergreen tree sprouted forth. By the way, there's another legend called the Legend of Thor. Isn't there like Thor's tree? Do you remember that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's the origin of Thor's tree. See, Odin, as in Wednesday or Woden's Day, also is another name for Nimrod or synonymous with Nimrod, because when other cultures would adopt this mystery Babylon religion, they would have to develop some variation of this individual.
Well, interestingly enough, you bring that up, and a lot of people ask, well, how does this one guy have so many different names throughout history? And I take it back to the Tower of Babel. Here he is. He was the one that built it, right? And once he built it and God scattered the languages, I'm sure there's going to be very many different variations of Nimrod's name,
Well, that's a very interesting story. See, the Tower of Babel is a small part of it. Nimrod was known for creating the first world order, the first global government, meaning he was the king over the entire known planet at that time. Maybe that is why we have megalithic structures that all look like they're built in the same place. By the way, I have a copy of Albert Mackey's Encyclopedia of Freemasonry right here, where it actually says right in it that Nimrod's considered one of the founders of the craft of Masonry, not by chance. That's important as well, because the sun worship and the sun symbolism is predominant in Freemasonry, even tying in with things like the zodiac sign when we start getting into it. But okay, so now Nimrod, since there was this global government, his name was deified in many different ways. In fact, the mountains north of Italy are known as the Mountains of Nimrod. And he also his mystery religion was adopted both in Rome, Greek, Asia, obviously, and even the Egyptians, who are said to have gotten their beliefs from the Chaldean. It all actually stems back to Asia, to this Babylonian religion, even the variation. So we haven't even gotten to the most important individual in this conversation, but I think it's important for you guys to understand the magic in the words. See, Osiris was a sun god who also had his body cut into 14 pieces. And we must remember, post-flood, since Nimrod was the great-grandson of Noah, there was bloodline relatives in Egypt. So when they say like the Israelis were slaves, I don't believe that is entirely correct. I believe that they were there under contract, and since the king understood the bloodlines between the two nations, they gave them work, and maybe over time it became like slavery, much like we experience now in the government with taxations, because we saw, the Israelis have their weapons and they had money and they had gold, and that isn't very characteristic of slavery. But I can understand how working and doing hundreds of years of work generationally, you could develop some form of let's say, prejudice.
Right.
So that's where we get the Passover from, is when the Israelis were freed from the rulers of Egypt, and it was more of like a religious thing. And of course, the adepts in even the pharaohs, by the way, who mummified themselves. This is a very interesting fact with transhumanism being so big. Why did the kings mummify themselves? Well, Nimrod, his phallic was mummified, and the idea was that he could be reincarnated or returned. Where did they get this knowledge that if they preserve their DNA in the future, it would be possible for them to, for us to actually take their DNA and bring them back to life? Because
right.
That's where we are right now. And they had prior knowledge of this. It isn't like something that just came to them, oh, maybe we just need to pull our big brain boogers out of our nose and then mummify our bodies. This came from somewhere. And when you read these esoteric books, the ones they don't want you to read a lot of times, you seem to be very enlightened and receive a full picture of patterns that make a lot more sense than what we're being conditioned to believe in our churches.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. To be honest with you, I've always viewed religious organizations, the brick and mortar churches, they're businesses. It's what they're really designed for. Let's be real. I mean, it's not about trying to teach you the real history of things, or if that was the case, we wouldn't be calling them holidays. They'd be calling holy days, like the word, what it originally spawned from, because we originally did have high holy days that we set above the rest, but they certainly weren't Easter. It certainly wasn't Christmas. It wasn't all of these different holidays. They were the high feast days of the Lord, or high Sabbaths. And that's where all all this spawned from. But it's very interesting how it was really, you can trace it back to that one point when the languages were scattered and people were scattered all over the world, that there are striking similarities to all of these stories, all of these ancient myths. There's just commonality across the spectrum. And that's what fascinates me. And it also validates to me why there's so much confusion as far as what's real, what's not, that kind of thing, is because it was all thrown out. There's like a bad rumor at high school, Yeah. Somebody tells the rumor, by the time it gets to the other side, it's just,
Well, it's funny. I had this debate today on one of Scott Walter's forums from America on Earth, and somebody that was well-versed in history wanted to have a conversation about this. But when we look at history and how all these names derive, they all mean basically the same thing. Even in America, the term Columbia is another name for Semiramis, Nimrod's mother or wife, by the way, who he incestuously married, and he believed that he would receive the all-seeing eye, which all-seeing eye is that. The one on the back of your dollar bill, this is really important to correlate and understand, or to stand under as we talk about the magic behind words, because when you have this character who's been now, like you mentioned, deified in all these different variations, what is it what's the message you're trying to teach? And see, the mystery religion, which is this Babylonian mystery religion, it's spread across the world in many different shapes or forms. And it's important to understand that these individuals is really what these traditions are about. So when we start getting into things like the days of the week, very simple things like Monday, that means moon day, like for Semiramis. See, Semiramis was the mother of the wicked ruler Nimrod, who was the mighty hunter of men's souls. By the way, it was said that he told men that it was through their own doings and through their own good works that they too could become as if they are gods. Later on, he was deified as the sun, Baal, Moloch, and many other deities. And then you can see the synonymous female version of the wife and the child in the arm of Tammuz. You can see it in variations of let's say ISIS, for example, in Egyptian folklore. We got what is it?
Osiris. You've got all the different.
So many of them. And when we get into the different variations of the names and the lore, it starts to get quite spine chilling. And you start to say, well, boy, Minerva, you know, you got Athena, you got Columbia. So now if Columbia means Semiramis, and in the Bible, she's synonymous with the whore of Babylon.
Right.
The question is what else does she represent?
Exactly. There's so much more. There's so much more to it.
Well, the Statue of Liberty, that's where I'm going with this. The Statue of Liberty, if you look at military documents, is claimed to be a depiction of Semiramis, the whore of Babylon, actually greets people coming into the United States. And boy, what a revelation that would be for Christianity to see that coming in the patriots of this country.
Yeah, holding up her lantern, you know, and she's one of the ones with the oil. Her lantern didn't run out.
No, she's got a crown, by the way.
And she's got a crown. And how many? I wonder how many things on a crown there is. You know.
No, I know she has 25 windows.
Yeah.
By the way, Semiramis also went by Hertha, Devaki in India.
And now, isn't she also Ishtar? Is Ishtar and Semiramis?
That's where I was getting at. So the story of Semiramis is very simple.
Yeah.
And here it is. It's basically, it was said that we celebrate Easter because Semiramis passed away and she was brought up to heaven and was dropped in a giant egg.
Yes.
That egg fell into the Euphrates River and it was pushed along by a dove. By the way, a dove.
Say.
Yeah, you wouldn't say a dove as in, you know, the Christian Dove Awards.
Yes.
And that dove was rewarded for saving Semiramis' life by being turned into a rabbit that lays
Now, let me ask you something. Now, if you're the dove, right? If you're the dove, is that not like the booby prize? I mean, here I am. I'm a dove. Look at me. I can fly, right? All this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden,
egg.
Poof, you're a rabbit. What's exciting about being a rabbit, dude? So all of a sudden now, Ishtar, out she comes of the egg. Oh, here she is. And poof, turns the dove into a rabbit. Now what?
Well, I guess if you're the rabbit, you're going to go around and be mating. I guess that's the thing.
Okay, so there's an upside then. Okay, so you got a lot of babies' daddies out there.
So I got to tie this all in together real quick for you. So Columbia, where I was stuttering for a while, also is in the word Washington, D.C., which is the District of Columbia, by the way. And some people interpret Columbia as two things, either America or dove, as in, you know, the dove that saved Semiramis.
Say it ain't so.
Yeah, no, it's a true story.
Wow.
So interesting. I get excited when I talk about these things. Most people don't understand, for example, what the spell and spelling means. For example, if you look up the meaning of to cast a spell, it's
right.
Direct magic, right? So why is the term spell and spelling if it's actually the process of making words? Because what you're doing is when you create words, you're taking symbols and you're putting them together to mean alternative things. So when we write things down, by the way, which is spelled W-R-I-T-E, there's another word contained inside of it known as ritual. What is a ritual? It's the process of living magically. So when you write things down, it's a process of writing magic or ritual down. And see, this can be tied back to the Egyptian folklore of thought, as in thinking, as in although, as well as two other deities, Enoch, Gregory, and or Metatron. Meta as in data, Tron as in computer. You can't make this stuff up. And he was the scribe of God. So what is our metadata, Metatron?
Oh man, dude!
Are you following along?
Yeah, this is
magic behind words.
Right. So there's power. There's literally power in the words, and also the rituals that you partake in. You know, and Easter is an example. People don't understand that their egg dyeing ritual. Oh, look at kids! How cute! Little rainbow eggs! Woo! Don't really. What happened was virgins were impregnated in Tammuz caves. And then 9 months, a year later, the 3-month-old babies were sacrificed and eggs died in the blood of the babies. I mean, they don't understand that just because you're using that, what is it, Paz dye or whatever it is you can buy in the supermarket, and you see everybody stocking up on their white vinegar right before, right? That you're reenacting a ritual sacrifice, and that there's power in that, no matter how cute it is, or no. Because let me tell you something. People probably thought, "Oh, how cute!" as kids were being sacrificed, because at that time that was the culture. That was actually ingrained in the culture. That was the norm. And these holidays that people celebrate, this is the norm for them. But it doesn't make it right. Kristan, that's the hard thing to swallow.
No,
and I got to tell you, it was troubling for me, and it was painful to learn, because many of my most fond memories come from these
holidays.
I'm telling you.
I'm right there with you. And so what are children going to believe when they discover that their parents lied to them about one of their most favorite and beloved individuals? By the way, you want to know why kids get BB guns for Easter? Because it's all about the hunt. You see that?
Dude, I'm never buying him a Daisy Red Ryder. I'll tell you that. Not on Easter. No.
And also dancing around the maypole. When your kids dance around the maypole represents the obelisk, by the way, like the Washington Monument.
Oh, like a big phallus symbol.
Like a big man, it's all penis envy, if you ask me.
Right.
But when you get to it, the whole idea here is the phallic is a reproductive symbol, and it represents Nimrod or Osiris. And I have to mention something that really correlates, and a lot of people might not understand this, but what do you think the process of stitching symbols together is called?
What is it?
Cursive. So what's the
cursive? Cursive.
So if you're going to curse somebody, what is the curse in cursive? It's the process of stitching together symbols so they are perceived as one single symbol, and they have an entire catalog of meaning in it. Not only that, the term grammar is the process of magic. And you can see a lot of glamour, and by the word grammar and glamour have the same root phonetically, just like the term world, whirl, and wood. And by the way, the term wood in Greek is logos, and that's the origin of the word Masonic lodge. It's just also important to the conversation to bring to light that Jesus was a carpenter that splits wood. Just throwing it out there as in log, and they use the term logos in the Bible. So
that's awesome.
It's all symbolism. I'm just saying it doesn't mean it's true. It's just what I've recognized as far as patterns go in these words. So, like, for example, Hollywood, most people don't understand that the magic wand is made of holly tree or Hollywood, and we all dance to the tune of the conductor, much like Jordan Maxwell has said, and many other people. The Easter tradition, by the way, is something that we have adopted, and these good feelings that we have with children, literally all of it is stemmed in ritual. And that's the important thing, is that you're living magically and you're performing magic when you partake in these certain rituals.
That's right.
And magic's a tool. Like I said, it's just like magic is spelling. A spell and spelling is to, cast or direct magic. And that's why when you say or you tie certain words together, people get certain reactions. Maybe you'll have a charming effect by the way you have a conversation and you stitch words together. It's all there. Very interesting stuff. But of course, Easter in of itself has nothing to do really with the egg and the rabbit, Jesus Christ, the crucifixion, but more so the egg and the rabbit and the zodiac sign. Most people don't realize that where we may receive the Christian cross from, and by the way, it isn't a Christian's cross, is the zodiac sign. You ever see the cross with the sun around it?
Sure.
A pagan symbol, and it was said that God's sun enters each zodiac sign, by the way, sun, S-U-N, at the 30th degree and exits at the 33rd degree.
Say it ain't so.
So, like Jesus Christ starts his ministry at 30 and dies at 33. And so what's interesting is at a certain point in the zodiac sign, the sun seems to hang there for like 3 days. And it said that God's son, S-U-N, dies on the cross for 3 days and raises again and brings forth spring and life through the fertilization of rain. These are all symbols of fertility. And really what happened is the Christian religion was paganized.
Paganized, exactly. It was right.
The emperor of Rome at the time found himself faced with this great problem called Christians, who taught that everyone was a saint and that they too could reach to sainthood. And they didn't have this pantheon of saints, which later on became the mythological deity gods reborn in the Catholic Church. But what we had here is a Roman emperor who found it found a way to make everyone happy, combine the mystery religion of sun worship and Christianity all in one, and then change the day of worship from the Sabbath to Sunday, the day you worship the sun, as well as the idols, which is the crosses, and let's say the all-seeing eye, the eye of providence, the rose of cross. All these different symbols in the church are different forms of idolism. And what we see is a complete violation of the 10 Commandments. Just being honest, if I'm going to violate one of the 10 Commandments, switching my day of worship is not gonna be most likely the number one on my list. I'm going to partake in some other sin since, God doesn't weigh sin, and that's some dark humor. But I'm just telling you, why are these specific ideals so important? Because they're perverted to the church, and it's literally the foundation of the 10 rules that you're supposed to adhere to. And
absolutely.
That's what it comes down to.
No, you're absolutely right, bro. And that's a good spot to end it there. Where can people find out more about this?
Well, actually, I have a new video out called The History of Easter Traditions. You can go to the AmericanIntelligenceReport.com, and I have a show Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time till noon. If you have an Android device, you can download my podcast for free. Just search American Intelligence Report. You get all my past episodes with great guests, as well as iHeartRadio Monday through Friday. Just search Truth Frequency Radio. And our buddy Joe Joseph here, he's on there as well. So thank you guys, everyone. And it's been great talking to you, Joe.
Man, it's been great having you here, man. And hope to have you on again real soon. Maybe we could talk about Christmas when that comes around.
Well, that has to do with the birth of Tammuz. Before even Christmas, there's Halloween, where we get bonfires or bonfires. And that
so every pagan holiday from here until we get back to Easter, we'll get together. We'll do a little something.
Does 4th of July count?
Why not? What the hell?
All right, I'll talk to you soon, Joe.
All right, folks, this was Joe Joseph, and this was thedailysheeple.com, a special interview with Kristan T. Harris of the American Intelligence Report. Check him out, theamericanintelligencereport.net, and his broadcast 10 to 12 p.m. Central Standard Time.
That's AM till noon.
Yeah, 10 till noon over at truthfrequencyradio.com. Check him out at iHeartRadio as well. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.